Good evening, and welcome to Nexus. Tonight we're diving into a story that rarely makes the front page, yet it is reshaping the very foundation of the United States. This is the story of rural America, once the proud heartland of the nation, now facing a crisis so profound that many counties may have no future at all. For generations, small towns and countryside communities symbolized stability, hard work, and tradition. They were places where families built lives, where agriculture and manufacturing provided steady jobs, and where Main Street was the heartbeat of daily life. But today, the reality looks very different. Across thousands of counties, populations are shrinking, industries have vanished, and young people are fleeing. Rural America, in many ways, is collapsing. So what happened? And more importantly, what does this mean for the future of the nation? Let's explore. Population trends tell the first part of the story. In the 1950s, nearly half of all Americans lived in rural areas. Town squares were full, schools were crowded with children, and farms stretched across the horizon. Fast forward to today, less than 14% of the U.S. population still calls rural America home, and that number is falling every year. Entire counties are losing more residents than they can replace. Young people, in particular, are leaving in droves, moving to cities for education, jobs, and opportunity. What remains is an aging population, fewer children, and towns where schools are closing because there simply aren't enough students left. And when a school shuts down, families have even less reason to stay. The economy paints an equally grim picture. Agriculture, once the backbone of rural life, has transformed. Small family farms, the kind that supported generations, are being replaced by massive corporate operations. These industrial farms use advanced machinery, requiring fewer workers. For the average farmer, it's almost impossible to compete. Manufacturing, another pillar of rural prosperity, has also been gutted. Factories that once employed hundreds of workers have shut their doors, victims of automation, globalization, and outsourcing. And unlike major cities, small rural counties rarely have alternative industries to fall back on. When a factory closes in a town of 10,000 people, the entire local economy can collapse overnight. And then came the opioid epidemic. In many rural counties, addiction rates are double the national average. Communities that were already struggling are now fighting another battle, this time against drugs, broken families, and rising crime. Law enforcement is stretched thin. Healthcare systems are overwhelmed, and for many families, the American dream has been replaced by despair. Healthcare itself is another piece of this crisis. Since 2005, more than 180 rural hospitals have closed. For millions of Americans, the nearest emergency room might now be over an hour's drive away. And in moments of stroke, heart attack, or trauma, that gap is deadly. Even where hospitals remain open, they are often understaffed and underfunded. Recruiting doctors and nurses to rural counties has become nearly impossible. And without reliable care, more families choose to leave. Education is suffering as well. Shrinking populations force many rural schools to consolidate. Children travel longer distances. Teachers leave for better-paying jobs in cities, and resources dry up. College attendance rates are far lower in rural counties than in metropolitan areas. And without higher education, the cycle of limited opportunity continues. Those who do leave for college rarely return, creating what experts call a brain drain. Then there's the infrastructure gap. In today's world, internet access is as essential as electricity, yet many rural communities still lack reliable broadband. This digital divide locks towns out of the modern economy. Businesses can't compete, students can't learn, and telehealth can't reach patients. While urban areas push forward with smart cities and artificial intelligence, rural counties are left behind. But beyond statistics and economics, there's something even deeper at stake. Culture. Rural life has long been tied to tradition. Sunday church gatherings, Friday night football games, county fairs and parades. Family-owned shops lining Main Street. Now, many of those traditions are disappearing. Empty storefronts, abandoned homes, smaller crowds at community events. For those who remain, it feels like they're watching their towns die in slow motion. So why is this happening? Experts point to several forces. Urban migration pulling young people away, globalization and automation eliminating jobs, policy neglect leaving rural counties underfunded, and demographic shifts creating older, shrinking populations. The result? A widening gap between rural and urban America. Cities attract investment, innovation, and talent. Rural regions, meanwhile, are left with promises that rarely materialize. Yes, there are exceptions. A handful of rural communities have found ways to adapt through tourism, renewable energy, or by attracting remote workers. But these are rare stories. For every town that thrives, dozens more continue to decline. And the hard truth is that many counties may never recover. Why should the rest of the nation care? Because the collapse of rural America affects everyone. Rural counties are essential for food production, for energy, for cultural identity. They also shape national politics, often tipping elections one way or another. If entire regions are left behind, the divide between Americans only grows deeper. So what can be done? Some propose expanding broadband to bridge the digital divide. Others push for rural healthcare investment, education reform, and tax incentives to attract businesses. Renewable energy projects could bring jobs, while keeping pace with a changing climate. But let's be honest. These solutions require long-term commitment, and many counties may already be past the point of no return. Once a community loses its schools, hospitals, and economic foundation, rebuilding becomes nearly impossible. At its core, this is about more than economics. It's about people. Families who see their children leave, workers who lose the jobs that define them, towns that lose the culture that once bound them together. Resilience has always defined rural America. For generations, these communities endured hardship and built lives against the odds. But resilience has limits. Without real opportunity, even the strongest communities cannot survive. So here's the sobering truth. Some counties may remain places of history, but not of future. And the challenge for America is deciding, do we fight to preserve these communities, or do we quietly let them fade away? The collapse of rural America is not inevitable. It is the result of choices, economic choices, political choices, social choices, choices that can still be changed, if there is the will to act. If we allow rural counties to disappear, we will lose more than towns and farms. We will lose a part of America's soul. But if we invest, if we reimagine, if we fight for them, then rural America may yet have a future worth believing in. This has been News Nexus. Thank you for joining us for this in-depth report. If you found this exploration meaningful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And tell us in the comments, can rural America still be saved, or is the collapse too far gone? Until next time, stay informed, stay aware, and stay engaged.